Hi everyone, welcome to the Publishing Performance Show. I'm really happy today to be joined by John DeMato, who is a visual storytelling expert and also the founder of DeMato Productions. So thank you very much for joining me, Don.
Well, Teddy, thanks for the invitation. I'm looking forward to talking about some photos with you.
Yeah, great. So why don't you tell me a bit about your backgrounds? Because I know you're a photographer and you also specialize in visual storytelling for entrepreneurs, authors, speakers, and things like that. But give me a bit about your backgrounds and what led you into photography.
Well, what led me into this world back in 2017 was, what's a good way to put this? I'd say utter frustration with trying to be a jack of all trades and a master of none. I mean, prior to being a professional photographer, I worked in television as a field producer for a talk show in New York City and then in Stamford, Connecticut. And once I quit, I was photographing headshots, and by that I mean once every 6 months, and in between all of that I shot 9 million networking events and different types of corporate outings and dating profiles and pictures of dogs and all this other crap that I would do. But around 2016, 2017 is when a light bulb moment happened, when I encountered a professional personal branding specialist who needed photos for her social media to help promote an upcoming book. And it was through that conversation that led to me thinking about how I can create opportunities to shoot stuff that A, was more interesting to me, but B, and more importantly, was more valuable to more people.
Yep.
So that's what helped form this branding photography business that then led into shooting live events and trainings and other things of that nature, which then ultimately led to photographing these people's books. So
Yeah.
that's where I'm coming from.
I didn't know that people got professional photos for their dating profile, I have to admit.
Oh, let me tell you something. It's a thing and it sucks, but it is definitely something that I did for about 2 years on and off. Yeah.
Yeah, nice. I wouldn't ask who you did, if you did any famous people, but
No. See, that's the thing. Famous people don't need it because they have paparazzi photos and they have Raya. They're good to go. As far as who I was working with, yeah, it was a little different story.
So the reason we wanted to talk today was because a part of your business is called the Book Boudoir, and it's essentially very, very professional photos of your book, but for use for things like marketing, that sort of thing. So give me a bit of background into that business and exactly why you do that business.
Well, the business was born out of a conversation with a client who saw photos that I took of another client's books. It was a stack of books during her branding session that I photographed, and I did like a design pattern with like 12 or 13 of them. He saw that, reached out to me in an email and asked, do you photograph books on their own? And at first I thought to myself, why would I want to do that? I don't understand the need for it. But we got on a phone call, started chatting about it, and he talked about how it could be interesting to be able to include independent photos for authors, specifically for those looking to launch their book, and how that those assets could be something more dynamic than just simply having a two-dimensional image of the cover. And as I was thinking about it with him and brainstorming back and forth, I threw out the question, well, what about the inside of the book? I mean, that's the whole meat and potatoes of the book in the first place. Maybe we could figure out a way to make those pages shine in some way, shape, or form. And from that conversation, that's how Book Boudoir was born. And funny enough, the name Book Boudoir came from yet another expert colleague of mine who saw some of the samples that I was creating, and he's like, wow, those are sexy. Those are sexy. You got to call it something cool. And next thing you know, the name Book Boudoir stuck. But essentially, the point of that service is to create an opportunity for authors, not just who are launching their book, but also to revive an old title. Maybe it's on the backlist, but they want to try to revive sales, or It's just an expert that wants to create an added layer of visual storytelling to what they're already putting out there, in addition to, yeah, I write a book, but I'm also a coach and I'm also a consultant and I also speak on stages. So the photos of the cover and the spine are great for marketing, especially the way I photograph it, where you leave a lot of negative space that creates opportunities for these authors' design teams to be able to put in branding elements and text elements and CTAs and all of those things to be able to draw attention to the cover, to the title, to be able to drive sales during a launch. But on the back end of it, it creates an added layer of content that looks uniquely compelling and interesting, because I'm photographing, pull quotes and section headers, unique design elements, illustrations, back cover images, recommendations, all of those different things, because they all can serve a unique purpose to be able to tell their story visually and to be able to catch the eye of someone who they can potentially help through their expertise.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the word you just used just then, sexy, is a really good way of describing them, because you look at some of the pictures on your website, some of the examples that we've used, they look like adverts from GQ or Forbes or something like that. They look like they basically make the books look really buyable, which I guess that is the whole point of what you do.
It is. I mean, on the aesthetic level, yes, but there is a hefty amount of strategy that goes into those sexy images, because at the end of the day, when you think about photos of a book, they parallel those of the photos of the person, which is, yes, the photos need to look good, because if you do not feel like they are flattering you, you're never going to use them. But at the same time, there needs to be a level of value in what is being shown in that image. So if I'm photographing a pull quote, it needs to be in focus and shot in a certain way so you can actually absorb what that content is, and then be able to read on in the caption that follows up on it and complements it and expands upon that thought. So there needs to be a value piece as well when thinking about these. But yes, I do enjoy making the books look good.
So with these photos, like the first thing that I thought, just because of my background working mostly with Amazon booksellers, is that it could be a great use for the A+ content on people's listings. So to show people the inside of the books, because I always think, especially some of these really nicely produced books, you've got charts or you've got images or you've got something that's engaging inside the book that's not just words. You've really got to be showing people that content.
Yeah, and the A+ material gives the author a lot of play space with which to work, because you're not only just going to use the images, but then you can create custom copy. You can add in not just book boudoir photos, but you can also add in branding photos. You can add in icons. If you have custom illustrations within the book, that can be leveraged as well. I mean, there's a wealth of opportunities with the A+ space on every author's page. And I've seen quite a few interesting examples of it with or without the books. There's a lot of play, but when you incorporate the books, images, that's when it starts to get even more compelling and interesting.
Yeah. Are there any particular things that you use for different types of books? So, for example, for a non-fiction book versus a fiction book, are there any particular ways that you'd photograph it differently between those two?
Regardless of whatever book that's in front of me, the approach is always dictated by the layout. It's dictated by the colors. It's dictated by the texture of the cover, whether it's a hardcover or a soft cover, if it's matte or reflective. If it's a hardcover and it has a jacket, when the jacket is taken off, is there some extra flair or design? Is the title embossed? Is there a recess of it? All of those are determining factors when I'm thinking about how to photograph these books, because while a book is a book, they're not made the same. They all have their own unique qualities, just like the people who wrote them. So as a result, it's important for me to understand what I'm walking into before I photograph them, so I can have a strategy in place. And that's why I always have strategic conversations with authors about their books before I approach photographing it, so that I understand what their goal, what the book is, first of all, what kind of book am I getting? What are the design elements? All of those different things. But then also, what are the quotes that are important? What are the section headers that would be important to photograph? Chapter titles, whatever the case may be, whatever is pressing for them that is paramount to have in that portfolio, I make sure that that is in their portfolio in addition to a wealth of other opportunities for them to leverage those images.
Yeah, of course. Now, with your book, with the photos, sorry, I know you've got quite a few client success stories. Let's go through a couple of examples where taking the photos has really helped to elevate either a launch or the marketing of those books?
In general, my clients are excited to have these images because in many cases they didn't even know this was a thing until they realized it was a thing.
Yeah.
So for a lot of my clients, one of the biggest things that I hear in terms of positive feedback is these photos are not just great for the book launch, which they leverage them, all over the place in terms of their online content and as well as their website page that's dedicated to their book. But one of the other interesting things I've found in terms of how they successfully leverage these photos is that some of them actually use it when they're keynote speakers. They use it for their slides, for their presentations. They're using it and not just online content. I mean, the actual presentation, the slides are there. And they've also used it for other types of marketing assets, for PDFs that they hand out to people. So in terms of finding the flexibility, that's really where the success lies, within that creative latitude that they are afforded when they have this pile of images of the cover, the spine, as well as the inside pages.
Yeah. Yeah, I can think of so many uses off the top of my head for where these would go. And yeah, I would really encourage people to go and have a look at the website, because you'll see the difference between a photo like the ones you take and the normal just A+ content that you get off something like Fiverr or something like that, which is obviously a much lower quality than what you've got. Now, with your other side of your business, you talk a lot about storytelling for consultants and trainers and serving speakers and especially authors as well. Do you think that any of those storytelling elements that you have in that side of the coaching business has translated into taking the photos? Like, do you try and get those storytelling elements into the photos themselves?
Oh, 100%. Because there's a motto that I have with regards to the way that I handle anything photographically. The moment that camera comes out of the bag, the way I shoot one thing is the way I shoot everything. And by that, I mean, the goal of what I'm trying to capture is a wealth of visual variety. See, one of the biggest problems that experts have with regards to their visual assets, regardless if it's a book or if it's the space in which they work or if it's photos of themselves, is that while the photos that they do leverage online, they may look great, the problem is they don't have enough. And by that, I mean, if you want to position yourself as the go-to authority in your space, whatever space of expertise that may be, one of the ways to do that is by creating this perception of authority, by sharing a wealth of high quality, compelling images that not only showcase how you solve people's problems, but also who you are as a human being. Because regardless if you speak on stages, write books, train in a workshop environment, run 3-day masterminds, whatever the case may be, you are in the business of building relationships. And one of the ways to help build that relationship is by illustrating a full, broad spectrum of who you are, who you serve, the problems you solve, and how you solve those problems. And if you're able to do that consistently and with intention, with a strategic mindset, you are going to be able to create an online presence that is going to attract those that will resonate with you as an expert in solving their problem, and you, the human being that they can stomach being in the same room with because they feel like your personality is in line with theirs.
Yeah. And obviously, because you're using the same strategy that you use for your speaking, like with the books, I thought there was quite an interesting quote that you had from your website that was, you like by working with you, for example, you'd learn how to build a powerful visual strategy that transforms your photos into genuine assets that resonates with your audience, builds trust, drives engagement. So I thought that was a really interesting thing to talk about, because a lot of people just see photos as a way of, showing people what they look like. But could you give me some examples of how you could use those photos to build that trust and drive engagement and to build that powerful visual strategy that you're talking about?
Well, the whole point of what visual storytelling is to prove that what you say is true based on how you show up in your photos. So if you're telling people that you are a $30,000 keynote speaker, well, where are the photos that prove that? If you say that you're a best-selling author, where are the photos that prove that? If you're a trainer, a consultant, fill in the blank, where are the photos that prove that? Step one is being able to back up every single word that comes out of your mouth online with visuals and video as well. But in this case, we're talking about images that prove what you say is true. So that is the first fundamental step to creating a genuine relationship where these people see you as a credible leader that can be trusted to deliver on your promise.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I can see just by looking at really good photos compared to amateur ones, how it makes you just look much more professional, really clearly sort of gives you an idea. Sorry, go on.
Teddy, can I ask you a question about that? Actually, you bring up a very important point. When you look at someone who simply posts smartphone photos, which is not casting an aspersion because smartphone photos do play a role in visual storytelling for every single person. But when you look at someone who only posts that on their website, on their social, everywhere, versus someone who has clearly invested in themselves and gotten a series of high quality, professional, compelling portraits and or book photos and event photos, what's the difference in your mind, and how do you perceive those two different people?
Yeah, I mean, you're automatically thinking someone who's, as you mentioned, invested in themselves and started thinking about what their brand's going to look like and how everything links together and how it's creating that story that you're talking about, is much more invested in their audience as well. If you're spending that time making sure that you're coming across well, that shows that you're a real serious person that is going to be taken seriously and also provide a great service.
Oh,
yeah,
that's okay. Thank you for the clarification.
And I suppose that is exactly the same with the books as well. So if we are thinking about the books, if you've got great photos of the books, especially if you're going to be doing marketing, not just on Amazon but outside, that's going to make quite a big difference.
It is. Now, listen, at the end of the day, though, when it comes to, let's say you're an emerging author, let's say you just quit a job and you wrote a book and you're just starting out. There is nothing wrong with simply using smartphone photos and using two-dimensional graphics of the cover, because that is what is available to you. However, there is a level of importance in understanding that there are levels to this whole thing when it comes to attracting a broader audience, to attracting a higher quality level of audience, to attracting the right types of people for you. And that as you go along in your journey, it's essential that you start to pay more attention to investing in how you are presenting yourself to the outside world and specifically to those that you want to serve.
Yeah. For people that are just starting out and maybe don't have budget to work with a professional photographer straight away, are there any interesting shots that you think someone could do at home that maybe could be the first step to elevating their game for their books?
Well, yes. I mean, at the end of the day, what would be very important would be to share images of you, the human being, and you can take those with your smartphone. But I don't mean just take a selfie, hang it over the top of your head, like as if it's being photographed from a helicopter shooting down. It's a more intentional and strategic approach. In the same way that you would approach a professional session, you need to have that same level of intent behind taking photos yourself. So instead of having the camera in your hand, put it on a stand, use the timer, use the grid to be able to compose an image in a way that is flattering to you and that it doesn't look like you're chopping your head off or you're chopping your chin off and it looks weird. Like, don't do that. I would say look at some YouTube videos that kind of give you the basics of how to leverage a smartphone camera. And I'm talking not high level stuff where you're doing all kinds of effects and crazy things. You don't need to do that. You simply need to understand what the rule of thirds are, how to accurately compose something, how to leverage the available light that is in the room. And the good news with a phone is it's simply a couple of taps on the screen. It's not really that complicated compared to using a $7,000 professional camera in an environment. But what it does do is it gives you the opportunity to be able to capture headshots of yourself, wider portraits maybe sitting somewhere in your office, how to shoot handheld when you're not shooting yourself and you want to photograph the book, for example, how to compose the book with the camera in your hand, with the phone in your hand, and doing all of those things. And I would say another option could be if you have pull quotes that you really like, while it is far more complicated to shoot a high level, well composed image with a smartphone of a pull quote, what you could do is grab a highlighter, highlight it, get the camera as close as you can, tap it so it's in focus, and photograph it. And you could still get away with that kind of imagery for the beginning, at least to start. And if you just do those simple things and you have that intent behind it, it's okay to start that way.
Yeah, brilliant. Now, working with you, what's that process look like? Is there a difference between working with a non-fiction or a fiction designer? Do people need to come in person, or is it a case of just sending you the book and seeing what happens?
Generally speaking, the way that for a Book Boudoir session, a client will reach out to me, say that they have a launch coming, they have their books, and they want to talk about what it would look like. We get on a strategy call. First of all, we define how many books they'll be sending me, how many copies of the title, because I have different levels of service that I can photograph one cover, I can photograph up to 5 covers or up to 10 covers. And the reason why that variety exists is because the more books I have, the more opportunity there is to create interesting and compelling compositions by leveraging the title, the spine shots, and give them a wealth of options visually for them to leverage in different places across their entire online presence for the launch. And then the next level is figuring out, as I had mentioned earlier, are there any particular quotes or illustrations or custom graphics or anything, section headers, whatever the case may be, that they definitely want photographed. That goes at the top of the list. And then everything else, I am going through the book and finding eye-catching section headers and pull quotes that I know can be leveraged for them in different ways, specifically for online content. I mean, obviously, all of it's important. It's in the book. If it wasn't important, it wouldn't be in the book. So that clearly, that level is already taken care of. But it's about thinking about finding those catchy phrases and interesting quotes that definitely catch readers' eyes, and those I will photograph on my own and then hand that in as part of the portfolio.
Great. Well, thanks so much for coming on. I mean, it's been fascinating to hear about photographing books, because you never think it's going to take as much effort as it does, but you know, you can just see in the final quality of the output what a difference it makes having these professional photos taken. So yeah, thanks for explaining your process.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure.
So if people want to get in touch with you, where's the best place for them to do that?
The easiest place to be would be my website, johndemato.com. And if you go on there, I have all the links to my social profiles for LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook. And for those who are interested in learning a little bit more about visual storytelling, the how, what, and why behind it, I have a blog that I put out 3 times a week. So you could sign up for that on my website as well. And that's pretty much where you should go.
Yeah, great. We'll put links to all that stuff in the show notes. But thanks very much for joining me today, and we'll speak again soon.
Yeah, the pleasure was all on this side of the camera, my friend.
Speak soon. Thank you so much for tuning into the Publishing Performance Podcast. I really hope you found today's episode inspiring. I love chatting to authors, writers, and people in the publishing world. Now, just before we wrap up, let me tell you about Publishing Performance, the #1 platform for authors who want to increase Amazon book sales, but are not really sure where to start. Now, this show is all about helping you to sell more books. And if you're looking to boost your publishing game and to maximise your book's potential on Amazon, then Publishing Performance is designed to help authors just like you to grow your readership and to reach a much wider audience. Now, I know that Amazon ads can be slightly complicated, which is why Publishing Performance is like having a personalised ad account manager to create your ad campaigns, to choose your best keywords, and to make adjustments in real time. Now, if you're investing in ads, you really want to make sure that your investment is being used effectively, and Publishing Performance does just that. It aims to make your budget go further, improve your organic rank, and target keywords more effectively. Just go to publishingperformance.com to get started with Amazon ads for just $1.